It's a closed little world, and if you don't come with protection, we stab you in the eye. This idea that Neil said about why doesn't he just submit to peer review? It's the biggest bunch of shit I've ever heard.
We've got two papers, the geometry of the proton. Did you get to see that?
Can we pull up the Neil stuff on that I prepared on that page? Because I cannot believe how disingenuous this is. He calls you the worst insult in academics, which is there was a study called Dunning-Kruger
effect.
Is both an effect that is studied and the ultimate insult. It's basically your mama, right? Mm-hmm. Let's just click on that and see what happens.
So I spent a lot of time on it, and I thought, out of respect for him, what I should do is give him my most informed critical analysis that I can. In my field, we call that a peer review. You come up with an idea, you present it either at a conference or you first write it up, and you send it to your colleagues. It is their duty to alert you of things about your ideas that are either misguided or wrong, or there's the calculation that doesn't work out, or the logic doesn't comport. That's their job. Not all ideas will turn out to be correct. Most won't be. But to get to that point, you need to know things like, what has everyone else said about this same subject? Am I repeating someone else's work? Is this a new insight that no one else has had, but has foundations that are authentic or legitimate or objectively true? Am I making a false assumption? Am I making an assumption that someone else has already shown to be false? All of this goes on the frontier of science. Let me make it clear that I'm delighted when I see people with active minds trying to tackle the great unknowns in the universe. It's a beautiful thing that people want to participate on this frontier. What can happen is, if you're a fan of a subject, let's say, a hobbyist, let's call it, it's possible to know enough about that subject to think you're right, but not enough about that subject to know that you're wrong. And so there's this sort of valley in there, a valley of false confidence. This has been studied by others, and it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's the phenomenon where a little bit of knowledge, you over-assess how much of that subject you actually know. And then when you learn even more, you realize, no, I didn't know as much as I thought I did. So then there's a sort of a lull there. And then when you learn even more, you come back up. Ultimately, learning enough to know whether you were right or wrong. To become an expert means you spend all this time. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't just sit in an armchair and say, I'm now an expert. It requires years and years of study, especially looking through journals where new ideas are published and contested. That's what we have learned is the most effective means of establishing that which is objectively true, or determining that which is objectively false. Both of those work hand in hand to move the needle on our understanding of the universe. I'm going to read you just my opening line here. It's titled 1 × 1 = 2.
Okay.
So I lead off.
So that was now if we go below that, what do we have? Let's try that.
Hi, Sir Arthur Eddington, an astrophysicist, provided the first experimental evidence for Einstein's general theory of relativity, which, by the way, was published in a peer-reviewed journal. Crazy idea. The platform to be accepted for the ideas is not social media. It is not Joe Rogan. It is not my podcast. It is research journals where attention can be given on a level that at the end of the day offers no higher respect for your energy and intellect than by declaring that what's in it is either right or wrong or worthy of publication or not. I wanted to post this to my website so you can see my comments mixed in with his treatise, but you got a sense of it. Thanks for listening.
Okay. I want to be very careful about my words. Is there anything below that we've put together? This is, let's go above. This is Neil deGrasse Tyson just so you don't feel bad about yourself, talking about me and my theories based on a question in an Ask Me Anything. Will you be able to talk to Eric Weinstein about the new theory of geometric unity? This is from 2013. We are all wondering about that. Cosmos is not your normal talking head documentary. In fact, it's the feature of the original that enabled the series to live for an entire generation beyond the shelf life of hundreds of other science documentaries that came afterwards. So the answer is no. Let me explain where you are. Neil is not unaware that you are never going to get your hearing in a peer-reviewed journal. Your ideas are going to come through. You're a self-taught, autodidact polymath. You haven't been cleaned up. You haven't been taught how to speak properly. You don't know the fact that when you say loop, we know fixed point. I know how to do all this stuff, right? You're not getting a peer review from me. I know a lot more than you do about a lot of this stuff. You're getting an elite review. And my elite review says that a lot of this is bathwater, but a small amount of this is baby. And that's not available anywhere. It's not available in a university. It's not available in a journal. That's available on the Joe Rogan Experience. And Neil's right. If what you want is peer review, you should go to a journal and they will laugh you out. They will take one look at your email address. And if it doesn't end in .edu, I promise you're not going to get hurt.
Do me a favor, Jamie. Can you pull up?
Let him finish.
Hold on, because
but let him finish because this is a sustained thought.
Let's go below where we just were, Jamie. I don't think Neil deGrasse Tyson actually knows the history of peer review. This is Google Ngrams, and it tracks how often a phrase is found in the corpus of English language books published in the world. Peer review basically begins in the mid-1960s. Now, there were various forms of review. Editors, in particular, were very distinguished individuals who were chosen to not peer review things, to simply take a look at things and see who should be published and who should be not. Can we bring that back up? More or less, from what I can piece together, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who started Pergamon Press, destroyed
Jeffrey Epstein's Ghislaine Maxwell?
Correct. He figured out how to destroy science and make a fortune by blowing out the number of journals and forcing every university to subscribe to every journal that he could figure out how to publish, because to not subscribe to all of the journals required an admission that you had an incomplete library. So he diluted the quality of the editorship of the leading journals. This was a very informal, high-quality enterprise. Now, most of the destruction of science, in terms of how high quality it used to be, has taken place relatively recently, post-Robert Maxwell. Because now we have an enormous number of journals staffed by people who can't spot publication cartels where we agree to cite each other's work and we agree to publish stuff, pay for play. All of the nonsense that you see with irreproducible research comes after this peer review thing. The peer review thing got woven in so that people think that the scientific method and peer review are effectively the same thing, where one is an unwanted infection from the biomedical universe, which had peer review much longer than everything else. Neil is giving you a very cursory back of the hand brush off. Okay?
I felt it.
All right.
I
I'm here
accepted it.
because I love this man, and this is a higher quality environment. We have to sort out what happened with Tony Fauci and the origin of COVID. I was very distressed when Joe